But welcome to the essay writing workshop. We're so excited that you were able to join in today. If you're a senior and you are just applying to colleges, and sometimes essay writing can be very scary. You don't know where to start. You don't know how to write things or how to put it down on paper, or just don't know where to begin. And that is fine. It can be a scary process. If you're a junior or sophomore joining us today, it's never too early to start perfecting your essay writing skills. You're going to be continuously writing different papers in high school, but also when you get to college as well. So I do want to let you know that this session will be recorded. So if you don't want your face to be recorded, you can turn off your camera, but still be involved. Ask questions in the chat. Use these reactions. I was going to say emojis, but reactions as well. So ask questions. And we have Erika here. She's our director of the Writing Center on campus at Earlham. And so she's going to give you all the tips and tricks of how to perfect your essay writing skills. Take it away, Erika.
All right. Wasn't quite sure if we were ready yet. Let me just go ahead and screen share for y'all. All right. So we're going to look at writing as a process, kind of developing as an academic writer. And so that's going to be looking at this from the full perspective of academic writing, starting from those college application essays you guys are all going to be doing, to some things that also will carry through to other academic writing you want to do, writing that you're doing now in your high school classes, and writing that you'll be doing hopefully with us in the future. All right. So the very first steps to becoming a strong writer is to read and to write. This isn't something that you're born with. You don't, come into the world knowing how to write and how to be really good. And if you don't just come born with that gift, you're not good at it. That's not how it works. What it really is just kind of taking things in, learning as you go. And a lot of that happens just naturally, kind of through osmosis. So as you're going along, the things that you're reading, you'll pick up all of the little tips and tricks. So learning how to use commas, easiest thing to do is just to read, and your brain absorbs the patterns that are naturally happening and that you're seeing around you. And you'll figure out how to do them just naturally through that. You'll pick up how they're being used just as you go along. And then practicing. So that can be more formal writing, like the writing that we make you do in school. Or it could be writing that you choose to do on your own as well. Writing if you like to journal, if you like to write creatively, however you like to go about that, that'll also really help you to grow as a writer. All right. So kind of the steps to an academic writing process. The first thing you need to know is your audience and your assignment. So that can be the more formal things like the citation style. Are you being expected to write this in an MLA, in APA, in Chicago? What kind of formatting is your instructor or the audience expecting from you? That's usually on your assignment sheet, or is expected through a syllabus if it's a pattern for an entire course that you will always present something in MLA. As well as knowing what kind of style it is. Is this just an email that you're sending? Is this an essay format? Is this a blog post, or whatever it is, knowing what kind of structure is going to be expected. If it's an essay format, it's going to expect you to be tabbing your paragraphs. It's going to expect you to have a header and a title. Whereas for an email, you're going to be expected to have the intended recipient's name at the top, usually with some kind of salutation, hello, dear, something like that. And then you're going to be expected to have some kind of sentence structure, for even sometimes a paragraph structure, depending on who you're trying to contact, for the email body, as well as signing off with your name. If it's someone you don't know, maybe the contact information for you, if they might be looking to call you instead of email you back, whatever that situation is. So being aware of that. As well as knowing, this kind of gets into something like emailing an academic admissions advisor, or an instructor you want to know more about a class, so you want to write that a little bit more formally. It's more formal than, say, what's expected from your audience if you are text messaging your best friend. So keep that in mind as well. And you're going to want to pick your topic. Some of that might be very structured depending on if there is an expected topic for you to write on, or it could be something more open. What do you want to be writing about? And when you pick, you're going to want to keep in mind your audience, the assignment, and the goals of that assignment. Or for an essay like you'd be writing for a college admissions essay, knowing that your audience is going to be the admissions counselor and that they want to get to know you, why you want to join us here at Earlham, what your goals are, and really anything about you and getting to know you better. So use the information about your audience and what the intended goal is of the thing that you're writing. That way you can make an informed choice about the topic you want to write. And then if this is a research paper or if you are emailing someone, research the topic. Know the name of the person that you're trying to reach if it's an email. Know if any questions you're emailing them about, if that's something that you can find elsewhere and not email that. That way you only get the information that you need to get from them and show yourself as being very informed. And same thing for writing an essay, making sure that you have any research that you need to do for that. Where are your sources? How does all of that look? Though you won't need to worry as much about sources for an admissions essay. The next thing you need to do is outline. This is the step most skipped by students. It's so easy to want to skip it because it seems like extra work, but I promise you it's going to save you time if you do it. So get down that skeleton, and then once you have that, you have all the information you need to just put some flesh on it, and it's your essay. So this will help you with your structure. It will make sure that everything is built in there properly. Any sources that you're using, if this is an academic paper, that's all built in. And then you don't have to revise as much because your structure is there and you can see how everything's built out, and you're less likely to have those kind of structural issues as you move forward. As well as then you know what the points you want to make are, and you can start building in your research. This is also a good way to double check and make sure that your actual essay that you're preparing to write or are in the process of writing is actually still matching your audience, the intended goals that you're trying to hit, and if there's any assignment goals as well, what those look like, and if you're actually catching all of them in there, or if you're maybe missing something as you get excited about your topic. Then once you have your outline done, you can do your actual rough draft, which is the full draft. When I'm teaching my classes, I'm expecting from a rough draft to see a full, complete essay, including the citations at the end. So make sure you have all of that. That way when you get back feedback, it's actually able to be informed on, say, my part, because I can see everything there instead of making notes that you're missing this and that. You get actual feedback on those pieces. And once you finish your rough draft, let it rest. Set it aside at least overnight, if not a day or so, before you come back to it. Because when you come back to it, you'll see it in a whole new light. You'll have a lot of new ideas, and you'll have that distance away from it. We know that you know what you want to talk about and that you are an expert on your topic. And in this case of an admissions essay, an expert on yourself. And so this, though, lets you step aside from that. And then when you look at the paper, you can see if it's actually matching what you had wanted to be talking about, or if you've missed something, if the structure isn't doing what you want it to do. It just gives you that distance to see it with some fresh eyes and make sure that what you're presenting is what you want to be presenting. And then the revision process. Your paper isn't done when you have that first draft. Just because it's an essay format, it's not over yet. It's going to still take time. So once you've read it, read it out loud. Easiest way to catch your mistakes. If you find yourself tripping over things as you're reading it out loud, it's probably because there's something wrong, either grammatically or logically in there, and that your brain isn't quite connecting with what's happening there. It's easier to do that out loud because in your brain, again, you know what you're trying to say, and so it's really easy to think that something's on the page that isn't. And when you read it and your brain's expectations aren't matching what's on the page, you'll trip and you'll catch it a little bit easier. As well as compare the end result to your assignment sheet, to the prompt that you're trying to reach, whatever it is, and make sure that the actual end product is matching the results. All right. And a revision is always going to be more than checking commas. Really, really go through and rewrite. If something's not working, feel free to go back through and kind of reverse outline it. Take your paper, see if you can turn it back into an outline, and if it's meeting what you want it to do, or if when you try to see what the structure of that essay looks like, if it's not having one anymore. Just some really quick, easy ways to try and fix it. And then you'll have a new outline to try your next draft. Everything just always takes time. These are all things that I use when I do my own research and my own papers as well. It's what your other instructors do because we get together and talk about these things as well. So these are all really, really good tips, and don't expect that one and done is how it goes. All of us do multiple drafts. I have things that are in the 10s and 20s of drafts before things are actually ready to be seen by someone else out in the world. So be patient with yourself, rest and return, and just keep trying. Write something out, set it aside, and come back to it, and you'll know when it's ready. Be patient with yourself. All right? So as you're going along in this paper process, be honest with yourself. How long will it reasonably take to do each step? Give yourself enough time and make sure you stick to that. It's also a really good idea when writing anything to make sure that you give yourself buffer room in case something goes horribly wrong. Someone gives you kind of a peer review back and that feedback was apparently unhelpful or something didn't go right in that process. If you just need to set it aside for longer because you're frustrated by it and need an extra day or two, give yourself some space in there to kind of make sure that that's there, as well as your college application essay, the essays for your other classes. We know those aren't going to be the only thing you're working on at that point in time. So give yourself room in case something else happens that you need to take care of. An essay in another class, something else just gets in the way. Give yourself space just in case. As well as make sure you save each draft separately. That way, if you need to go back to another draft, you can, as well as your outline. That'll also really help because sometimes you'll go through and look at a new draft and like the magic just is gone from this one. Something happened and it's just not there, or there's a turn of phrase that I wanted to use that I lost in this version. And then you can go back and salvage that a lot easier. As well as use the writing resources. Use writing centers, use other people who are informed and who can help you check back over your paper, peers, instructors, family members, whatever it is that you have at your disposal. At college, you'll always have the writing center. These aren't resources for bad writers. These are resources for every writer. I have someone who reads over everything that I do to make sure that it looks right and that I'm doing what I want to do, and we talk about it and make sure that that looks right for me, and I do the same for her. And the same for your instructors. We get together on Thursdays and share what we're working on and have people go through and help us make sure that we're actually writing what we want to be writing and that things actually are making the right connections. So don't think that coming in and getting help is something that just isn't for you. Even the good writers need it. The tutors, sometimes when they're tutoring, they're actually signing up for appointments with each other and will be also helping out or coming in on nights when they aren't working to work with each other to get that peer review as well. So we all need a little bit of help and another eye to make sure that we're actually doing what we wanted to be doing as we go along. So use it. We're here, we're free, we're ready to help. All right. So let's practice. Feel free to stick, and actually before we get started, go ahead and feel free to speak up or go into the chat. I can't see the chat from this view or I lose my PowerPoint. So Yulia will kind of pipe in there and let me know what's happening there. But what do you struggle with when you try to get started on your papers? Is that where you struggle, or where do you get stuck in the process? And feel free, if you just want to talk to me, you can do that.
And we'll give it a minute or so to give the students some time to type. But one student did say editing.
Mm-hmm. That can be tough. Is there something in particular with editing that's getting you, or is it just editing in general is intimidating? And I have found my chat now, so I can see.
I was just waiting on her on Airs to write back, but some other students had said the start of the draft, which is understandable, staying on task and not procrastinating. Yep, I also get that. The starting on the paper, the starting on the paper, the first place, getting started with the first sentence. So it sounds like a lot of people are not sure how to start at the beginning. I really just need a boost because once I get started, I can go on with no issue. How to start the paper, tying up the points, keeping the main idea. Sometimes how to start editing. And then for editing, making everything concise and streamlined. So that was the editing one. Another student said being able to start the draft and revising the paper, and then another one started the paper.
All right.
Yeah,
Let's just
that is tough.
here for a second as you guys are asking questions. Let me kind of answer them. Some of these kind of all go together. So for where to get started with your paper, if we're talking about like, okay, I've just gotten the assignment and where to get started, as well as for my procrastinators, my people. For both of those things, one of the easiest things to start with is just your timeline. How long do you have to accomplish this? And then breaking down all the different steps of the paper into little bite-sized chunks. Make it manageable, and that way you can feel accomplished as you tick things off down the list. So start off by building in that idea of, okay, I have 2 weeks to write this paper. And in order to write this paper, I'm going to need to research, and I'll need to outline, and I'll need to have time for multiple drafts, time for someone to look over and give me feedback, and build that in, and then start building in the amount of time you have to do it. And as you're doing that, add in amount of time that you need to do other things happening in your life as well. I also have practice, so I want to schedule myself to know that I can't have this block of time, and really just build a calendar. You often have a syllabus and kind of a list of when things are going to be happening ahead of time in your life for your classes. And if you are someone who really likes to play with that kind of thing and get organized, and that's something that doesn't overwhelm you too much, because that sometimes gets me, you can even start building that in ahead of time at the very beginning of the semester and build into a planner. Okay, so I know that in October I have these 3 things happening, and then you can see as you go along and make sure you aren't overextending yourself and that you're giving yourself time for everything. So that can really help, just to have those little bite-sized nuggets of accomplishment to keep you going. As well as then you have that end goal there to see that as well. And as far as getting started, sometimes the start of the paper isn't the start of the paper. First sentence is the worst. So if you start instead with your thesis statement, which is just, we'll talk about that a little bit actually, just kind of the roadmap for your paper, and then go right into the body paragraphs, you can go back to that introduction later. Then you have a better idea of what your paper actually looks like, and you can build in the information that someone would need to read that later. And it also gets you right into the actual meat of the paper. And by the time you're done with that, you're ready to talk about the introduction. Whereas if you start actually with your introduction, that can be really, really stressful sometimes. Let me see, is there anything else that I'm missing so far? Are we ready to actually like try some stuff?
Yeah, I don't think there's anybody else that mentioned anything.
Cool. So let's look at this specifically for college applications and how we can use that. So these are the kinds of topics you can expect for your college applications. So for us, these are our essays. Some students have a background, identity, interest, or talent that is so meaningful they believe their application would be incomplete without it. If this sounds like you, share your story. Discuss an accomplishment, event, or realization that sparked a period of personal growth and a new understanding of yourself or others. Describe a topic, idea, or concept you find so engaging it makes you lose all track of time. Why does it captivate you? What or who do you turn to when you want to learn more? Or you can share an essay of any topic of your choice, something you've already written that responds to a different prompt or different thing you just want to tell us about for yourself. And so if we're looking at these topics then, let me actually pull back up that chat because I closed it for a second. Let's just see. I'm gonna quiz you guys. So who would our audience be for this? Who would our audience be, and maybe also what would the goals be for any of these essays? They all kind of have a similar goal. So what would you be trying to do with this? No need to be shy.
Admissions officers, and the goal is to talk about yourself so they can get to know you.
Absolutely, Kelly. So perfect. Yes, we're going to try to get to know you a little bit more, as well as the applications themselves can be very, very similar once you get to the end of that. It's lots of just ticking off some boxes, and we get a vague idea of who you are. Exactly, Emma. So show us who you really are. Let us know you a little bit more and have a better idea of who would be joining our community here. It really, really helps, and it's just nice to be able to know when you get here who you are. All right, so knowing that, the next thing we would need to do once we picked which one of those topics we would want to do, which is going to be completely personal to you, the next thing we would do is just outline. So the first thing we would need to do is a thesis, and that might change as you go along. And a thesis statement is a really horrible word because that seems super, super intimidating. But all that really is, when you break it down, is it's the table of contents for your paper. Whenever I or anyone else is reading your paper, all we're doing is we look there just to see, what are you going to tell us? That could be something as simple as, for like an argumentative paper, your big argument for the whole paper broken down into a series of smaller arguments that would also be in there. For my math-minded, science-minded people for whom papers are horrifying, that could look something like big argument equals mini arguments 1 + 2 + 3. There you go. And with that kind of a map, it's really easy to have a simple sentence structure that then you can just polish and make sound a little prettier, and you're good to go. I know what you're trying to tell me about in your paper, and you have everything that you need. All right. So once you have that thesis, then you also have the very first bits of your outline. So for something like a standard essay that would have 3 body paragraphs, that would be something like argument 1, body paragraph number 1. That's the argument that I'm trying to make here. And then you could put in the points you're trying to use, any research that you want to do, or anecdotes, stories that you want to tell me. And you would do the same for body paragraphs 2 and 3. And then you have a paper, because all you have to do then is just weave that together into sentences that sound nice, that have the right flow, and are building in the kind of argument that you want to have. Also, at this outlining stage is a really good time to try and build in your sources. You can always tell when you last minute tried to plug in those sources after the paper was written, because they just don't flow or connect properly. So if you do them at this stage, it's going to sound more organic and like it was written all the way through like it should be. So this is a good time to put that in. I also really recommend doing your citations at this point as well, so you can just copy paste those into your end result. And then later you don't come back to it and say, where did that quote come from, and have to reread all of your research again. Just learn from my mistakes. This will fix that for you. As well as it's always good to have, if you're using something that needs research, have more research on hand than you think you might actually need, because as you're going, maybe something won't work and you have some backups there for you. All right. And then as for everything, once you have your outline done, let it rest, set it aside, read it again, revise it, and then write your paper and go from there. All right. And this just also puts things into a nice bite-sized series of chunks for you that will hopefully also help with the feeling that you need to procrastinate, or just getting overwhelmed in that process as you get started. Like this, you know exactly what that paper is going to be structurally on the page, and you just get to fill in the blanks and make it sound pretty. All right. So this works for emails too. Know your topic and your audience. Know that it isn't a text message, so we're expecting that salutation and that ending there. As well as know why you're emailing something, what you want to get or learn from them, and that you can't find that anywhere else. As well as make sure you've done your research, know the name of the person. Can you find it if you don't know it? Have they already emailed you? That way you know who to contact exactly. And then, did you actually write down everything? Do you have the information you need to give, including information about yourself, like contact info? And did you ask for what you need? It's really easy to get lost in the, I have now said the things that I need to say in here, but I actually forgot the question along the way. So do that. And I always recommend still proofread, edit, and revise your emails. They don't need to be done to the extent an essay would, but reading it back out loud again helps you catch little errors that you make along the way, because those happen no matter what it is you're trying to write. All right. So how we can support you through all this process. So for instructors here, like on campus, you can go right to them for help understanding the assignment and their goals. So they're always going to be happy to answer any questions you have about that whole process for you. They're there, use them. They're not scary. We all have office hours where we're just in our offices, even if those offices are virtual, waiting for if you need help. So go and use them, we're there. As well as you can go to the library for help research if you need help finding what you need, trying to figure out how to find sources, especially if it's something you haven't looked for before. And the library is a great source for both electronic resources, hard copies. If they don't have it, they can get it for you from about anywhere in the world. So they can just have it shipped and sent in. But if you're trying to find something tricky that you need to have shipped in, make sure that you have that planned out if you need to add that into the number of days it takes you to get something, because if you have to wait a week for it to arrive, that's going to impact your time as well. So keep that in mind. And then for the Writing Center, we do full process help. How do I turn this assignment sheet into some topic options? How do I make a useful outline? How do I build in my sources? How do I turn a rough draft into an outline? How do I turn an outline into a rough draft if you're trying to move backwards and forwards there? As well as how do I meaningfully revise this? There were some questions about that as well, and that's going to depend a lot on the paper itself. But often that would mean going through and reading it, making sure that the structure is there, and it does get more complicated, and it is a lot easier the more people you have to read and give you some feedback on that, and have an actual conversation with you besides just passing notes back to you. Having that conversation of, what were you trying to say here? How can I help you say that? Or what are you missing? So we help with all of those things, even just a basic read of it, seeing if the logic is there, if you're actually meeting the goals so that you're trying to make, both in assignment-wise and other, as well as a lot of other things. Citations. I'm just really stressed out because I have this assignment and I have no idea how to even get started. We help with that. We have students who come in who are at every single stage. Here is this assignment sheet, I'm scared, to I have this really final draft and I just need help making sure all the polish is there and that everything is clicking together. So use those resources. Those would always be there for you. All right. So now I think we have some time. Are there any other questions? Anita, we don't really have high school students coming in, but use family members, use friends, guidance counselors, whoever you have available. And then when you get here, we'll be here. All right.
We also had another question from Precious. So you have a virtual writing center.
Yes. I don't know if you guys are familiar with the gaming system Discord. We've been doing tutoring through Discord, so that's lots of fun. And yes, it's completely virtual right now, as well as for as long as it needs to be. It's still face-to-face like that, screen sharing, whatever it is that people need, as well as the text function if you prefer that, just as available as we would be in person. And those happen going through, we usually are at night because that's when most people are available, and we have hours on the weekend as well, so we try to make sure that when you'd be looking for and panicking over things, we're ready. Yes, the Writing Center here at the college is only available as a student, unfortunately. I think that was Precious as well. Other questions, anything about the writing process, anything I can help you with now since you have me here at your beck and call? What can I help with?
Yeah, and for anybody that may have started writing their college essays, this is a perfect time to ask those questions. Like if you're stuck in the middle of a essay, or you don't know how to pick a topic, or you don't know if you have a topic but you don't know how to start with that topic. So any of those questions.
Are there any tips for making your personal college essay stand out?
Great question.
Really be genuine to you and what you're interested in and the stories you have to tell. Don't feel like you need to try and impress us. If you go through and try and use the thesaurus to make yourself sound fancier, it actually sounds less like you. Stick to your voice. That's going to be your biggest thing. I actually have read all of the essays from like the previous years because we also use those to help with writing assessment starting out. And the students whose papers stick out the most in my mind are the ones who talked about things that they were really, really interested in. Some of those were about comic books. There were at least 2 about the music group BTS that were just so fascinating. Lots of different ones about just personal life stories, things that made college really important to them, or what they wanted to study really important to them. outside interests that maybe I would never even see or know about in the classroom, but that were important to them or were a really inspiring factor in something they wanted to do in their lives. And it's been months now and I still remember them like I read them yesterday. So those things can really help you. How can I resist diverging into different points? That would be your outline. That's going to really help. If you build out that map and stick to it, that's going to really help you because you'll already have an idea of where you're going and just follow that along. I am a person who also gets very easily distracted by the shiny things in writing or in my research, and I'll run off in another direction and find that I am 3 topics away from where I started, but having an outline really helps. Sometimes my outlines are longer than the actual paper, and I'll do multiple drafts of an outline before I even get to an actual paper draft, because that helps me keep reining myself in and remembering what my topic was that I originally got started in. That's the best way to get going, and it really, really helps. Yulia, I think this is more of a question for you. When are our college admission essays due?
Yeah, so typically when students submit their application, they'll also submit their essay along with it. So for example, with the common application, when you submit the common application, you have to submit your essay along with it. So really it's going to be when the applications are due. For our application, our early action, the application is due December 1st, and then our regular decision applications are due March 1st. So it's going to be more so the application deadlines, not just the essay deadlines.
I'm sorry, I have a couple different names listed under this one, so I'm sorry if I'm either pronouncing this wrong or I have the wrong name. Kenjiro, does my topic really have to be linked with the major I want to take? No. Majors change. I have degrees in English, religious studies, and poetry. I started off as a freshman thinking I was an environmental scientist. Things change, so instead talk about what you're really interested in, because who knows, maybe it'll help you find where you're actually going. So write about whatever it is that you really are interested in and what's driving you, even if that's not related to what your actual field is. You're gonna be just fine. Just let us see you, whatever that means. Precious, the online writing center, that's only for Earlham College students, and that's actually, it's super easy to find. It's just earlham.edu/writing-center. And there's also a scheduler there for if you were a student trying to join us. So it'd be that. So it is available on the school website, and that also is our scheduler. And the scheduler is the same for if we were actually in person as well. It just kind of lets you log in and make sure you have an appointment ahead of time. And now it also sends you a link to the Discord. You also had questions about do you have to use broad vocabulary in your essay? Do they care about how smart you are or just who you are? And do they also look at grammar and punctuation as well? That is a lot. Okay, so for vocabulary, grammar, and punctuation, all of that stuff, be genuine to yourself and to the language that you need to use. Don't feel like you have to be fancy. Just show us who you are and the language that you need to use. Grammar and punctuation is a tool, and that's just used to help your reader understand. It's not something that even when I'm grading essays for my classes, I don't go through and like circle every comma that's wrong. That is not productive for anybody. Don't feel like you have to really know your grammar perfectly. That's not going to affect anything. And you're already showing us how smart you are with your transcripts, with everything else that you're turning in. The essay is just a point for you to introduce yourself in a more organic, or as organic as we can be, way, since you can't really introduce yourself through the same kind of face-to-face interaction through an interview or something. This is a way for us just to get to know you on a more semi-casual function. So feel free to just be yourself there and don't stress too much about the tiny little details. It's going to be just fine. All right. Let's see. Emma had a question. How long does the college essay need to be? Is there a max length? I'm not sure. Yulia, does that time out for them how long that can go?
I think so. I think for some of them, they do have a max amount of words they can write. I want to say it's 500, but I'm not sure. But I would say nothing longer than a one-page paper, just because admissions counselors, they're reading so many different essays on a daily basis. So you don't want to keep it too long, or you don't want to keep it too short either. So I would say double-spaced one page is great if you can get all of your words and all your thoughts into that one page as well. So
kind of to go with that, as well as something else that we'd seen earlier questions and stuff for length. Going through and reading things out loud as you go along and seeing where there are extra words you could take out will help to condense that. It's also just a good practice to have. Are there any words here that I could take out and have a better meeting, or have it flow smoother throughout? And you hear that a lot too when you're reading it out loud, if you're asking it out of anxiety about not having enough space. So feel free to do that, and just be kind of careful with that reading and seeing where you can kind of catch that. Anita, what makes a paper stand out? Really just, again, being yourself. We can tell when you're being genuine in your paper, or when you're saying what you think that we want to hear, or when you're using language that you think that we want to hear. It becomes really apparent, especially when you're reading so many of them, or you're so used to reading them. So really just be yourself. Don't worry about trying to stand out. Even just if you talk about something that you're actually excited about or that you enjoy, we can see that. It's really easy to see when you're being yourself and are excited about what you're talking about, and that'll be enough to make it stand out all on its own. Anything else?
I also just want to quickly say that some of the essays that I have read different versions of essays too. There was one that was more like a journal entry, and it still worked really well for that student. There was another one that they submitted. It was essentially like a playwright, and that was really interesting. And that just showed that they're really interested in theater, and they're interested in creating their own plays and everything. So that was their kind of essay. So you don't have to stick to just the traditional essay format. So you can go branch out. But I would suggest, if you do branch out, to of course speak to your counselor, but also your English teacher as well.
Anything else? How are you guys' applications going so far? Are those going well? Is there something in there that's bothering you guys? We can talk specifics if that's what you want to talk about too.
Don't be shy. I know it's late in the evening. Well, I guess it's not too late for the ones that are in California and Vegas.
Or if there's something you want to go back to and have us talk about a little bit more in depth. We talked about a lot of things in the earlier actual PowerPoint stage of the presentation. So if you want to talk about something in more depth too, we can.
Well, if there's no questions, we can go ahead and wrap things up, but we really appreciate, oh.
I have a couple more and pop it in here.
Yay, good.
What if you don't have a lot to say about yourself? Ooh, that's a tough one. Are there any things that you would like to talk about as far as, really, this can be super general. Like I said, some of the ones that stuck out for me were the pop culture things that people were interested in, or how that shaped them. Think about the kinds of major you want to do or things you want to get involved in. These are pretty short, so just, even if it's just here's an introduction to myself. For me, that back then, it might have looked something like Hi, I'm a first-gen college student, and I'm coming here to be an environmental scientist because I've done some work with water testing in high school, and I thought that was really cool, and so I'm going to try and keep doing that now. You can just be really genuine about yourself and who you are, Precious, and it doesn't need to be anything too fancy. This isn't the only thing happening in your application. It's just an introduction to you. So please don't feel super pressured by this. Just give it a shot at just introducing yourself. Promise, it's gonna be just fine. All right? Aaliyah, can we talk about a certain club as a passion? Yes, absolutely. That's a really good place to start, something that you're interested in there. Perfect. I would even, as a starting place too, if you want to, do a quick search on our site and see if we actually have that club. We have quite a few of them. If there's something there, and you can even talk about wanting to continue doing that if it's something you're interested in. All right. AJ, how can you prepare for an entrance essay? For that, start looking over those. We had that list of, let me actually pull that back up for you, topics, and I would start there. Start with the topics, see if there's something that sparks your attention. Precious, since it sounded like you were stuck to, that's a good place for you to go as well, and just see if there's something in there that you could use as a jumping off point, and then you can get fancier or not fancier as works for you. But that might be a good place to help brainstorm and just, like I said, brainstorm, try an outline, see if there's something in there that works for you, and you can build from there. All right. If you've worked on a research paper in high school, how would you talk about that in an admissions paper, like in AP research, for example? Just tell us about it. Say you can go about that as something like, I did this research on insert topic that was really fascinating to me. I really enjoyed studying this book, this piece of history, this culture from world history, whatever it is. And just let us know why that was really, really fascinating and informative for you. What is it about that that was so interesting? How did that research work? Whatever in there you want to talk about. If you want to give me some more specifics on what in there you want to talk about, feel free to drop that in here, and we can look at that a little bit more too. Any others? And if I've answered something but you have follow-up questions, that is totally valid. Feel free to keep dropping stuff in there if you have it. Airs. If we wanted to contact you later, where would we find your contact info? My contact info is on the Writing Center's webpage. Let me see here if I can also plop something in. All right, so I'm also plopping it into the chat. Feel free to email me, and I'm more than happy to answer questions if they're more personal or you're worried about something. I can only help to a certain extent with your admissions essay since I'm already here and doing stuff, but if there's something general you'd like to ask, or if you have questions about what the Writing Center offers or about classes, feel free to reach out.
Thanks so much, Erica. This has been great. Oh, we had one more question.
All right. Can we send you our papers to see if we are on the right track? I'm going to say we probably want to limit that a little bit just because I feel like that's a little bit of inside baseball there. But
I would say definitely use your resources at your own school. Use your English teacher, use your guidance counselor, use whoever that you're really close to at your school. Even have your family members take a look at it. Sometimes even a peer. If you have a peer look over it, definitely make sure that you still have a teacher or a parent or a guardian look over it afterwards as well. So, but definitely utilize your resources. You have endless amount of resources at your own school. But I hope everyone feels a little bit more confident in their essay writing after this. This has been really great, a lot of really great tips and tricks on how to get your paper started, how to keep it on track and everything. So, but you guys got this. It's not that scary. It's not scary at all. So like I said, use your resources that you have around the school. And then if you do come to Earlham, you'll have an additional resource. You'll have the Writing Center, you'll have Erika and other really great faculty members on our campus as well.
Take your time, be patient with yourself in the process. It's going to be just fine. Don't worry. Really, this isn't meant to be an extra stressful thing. It's just, we want to be able to get to know you and get to know you a little bit more than we can just through an application and some scores. So really just show us yourselves and it's going to be more than enough. All right?
You got this.
It was really, really great to see you guys too.
Yes. Thank you all. Thank you all for tuning in and hanging out with us this evening. We really appreciate your time. For any students that are interested in athletic programs, next Wednesday at 7, we are doing an athletic session as well. So hopefully you'll be able to join in. But thanks again for joining us tonight, and good luck. Good luck in your application and good luck in your essay writing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you. Bye.